Morena, everyone. Welcome to councillors. Welcome to members of the public. Welcome to councillors who aren't on this committee. I value their input into the items that are here on the agenda today. So I'd like to allow speaking rights to councillors who aren't on this committee later on through the agenda. Thanks. We are recording this meeting. The meeting has been held here at the supper room at the Waihinga Centre, Martinborough Town Hall. It has been live streamed and will be available on the council's YouTube channel. Health and safety, the emergency exits for this room are the door that you've come in at the rear there and the exit behind me out past the kitchen. If we need to evacuate the building, please use one of the exits and assemble outside the playground. Please remain at the assembly area until the building has been confirmed clear. Now, I'd just like to invite Mayor Connolly to open our meeting with a mihi or karakia. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. Tēnā koutou katoa. Kia hora te marino. Kia whakapapa ponamu te moana. Hei horahi mā tātou e te rangi nei. Aroa atu, aroa mai, tātou e a tātou katoa. Let us show respect for one another and bind us all together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Connolly. Do we have any apologies for the meeting today? I'm aware that we have any apologies, but I'm aware that councillors Maynard and Councillor Gray will be logging in online. So we've got Councillor Maynard, unsure as to whether Councillor Gray has logged in. Okay, that's great.
Yes, I'm here and listening. I'm just at the airport, so I'll keep my camera off. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gray. Our next item, do we have any conflicts of interest to declare with regards to the matters on the agenda today? No. Thank you. No conflicts of interest. Right, we've got members of the public speaking today in public participation. I'd first like to invite Alan Hogg, Chair of the Martinborough Business Association, to come and speak. Martin, Alan, I'm just wondering if you'd like to come through and perhaps sit next to Mayor Connolly here, where the microphone, right down the front, where the microphone is. Thanks, Alan and Charlotte.
Thanks, Aidan.
You're here to speak to us about the members' paper, the State 53 proposal, which Mayor Connolly has put on the agenda.
Thanks, Aidan. Good morning, everyone. There's been this topic's been around for I think 4 of the 5 years that I've lived in Martinborough. I'm the chair of the Martinborough Business Association, so I'd just like to let the committee know what the MBA perspective is on this topic. Firstly, we've got 2 views of it. One's a commercial view, and one is around our brand of Martinborough Wine Village. From the commercial point of view, our side street business owners and operators who are members of MBA have talked to us about the costs of doing business with Waka Kotahi in particular, when situations arise when they have to deal with that organisation. Their preference, as is the preference of a lot of people, is to have local control over that as a local road, and for local businesses to deal with local managers who can respond much better, we believe, to the situations that we're confronted with, better understanding and better agility. On the Wine Village brand, as we all know, Martinborough. I lived in Marston about 35 years ago. Martinborough is a visitor destination point, and we've got a brand of Martinborough Wine Village. And we like to promote that and promote events, promotions, whatever they may be. And again, having the ability to deal locally with local managers to form those local decisions is a much preferred position that event organisers and business operators are in. There is a paper which I've just called the Ted Preston paper, which we supported. That deals with the invigorating of the business area. And in that paper, Ted quoted some overseas examples from Sweden and in New Zealand, the Nelson experiment, where they pedestrianised the business area. My association hasn't supported the permanent pedestrianisation of the business area, but we do support the ability to be able to have a pedestrian area in the business area on an event and promotion basis. Now, we first put this up to somewhere via our community board back in February 2020. I think there's been a suggestion somewhere that our community board had never seen this. Well, that's not quite right. And there was an action point taken in February 17, 2020, and the matter was referred up through the organisation, either to a committee or to council. In the intervening time, I've met with various council officials, probably 2 or 3 times, to update MBA on a range of things, which has included the SH53 concept and the pedestrianisation of the town area. So look, we do support all of that still. As I say, we haven't endorsed the permanent change to the business area. There's a bit of misinformation around. I've heard costs being quoted around the State Highway 53. And again, the permanent pedestrianisation of the business area as barriers to doing those things. The recommendation by my association back in February 2020 was for this to be picked up and analysed and investigated as options with a cost-benefit assessment. So I don't think any of that has been done, and I don't know there's much value in a lot of side comments when we haven't done the basic cost benefits work of changing the end point of SH53 or any change to the business area. So that's just an update on our position. We certainly support the members' paper. Charlotte, do you want to update anything on that?
I mean, obviously this has been on the table for a period of time. So I did just follow up to make sure as businesses change and, life has changed quite a lot. It does seem that the revoking of State Highway 53 back to the options that were put in front in 2020 are still a desire for the sort of majority of local business. And I know being involved partnerships with event holders that we have, the challenges that currently as Waka Kotahi, things have changed there. So implementation of health and safety for all the reasons is getting tighter and tighter. So it's becoming quite challenging. So from that perspective, we know there's also a sort of supporting of how this could be looked at and changed because management of that becomes challenging. And that is a part of a destination that we are. Yeah.
Right. Thanks, Charlotte. Any questions from councillors? Councillor Plummer?
Yeah, I've just got one. You asked about you mentioned there are issues in dealing with Waka Kotahi, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell me, and I don't know the answer to this, has there ever been an application for a road closure or an activity being declined by Waka Kotahi?
I don't know. I don't know that.
I have my time in Marlborough, the district. I don't.
No, but what we have heard though is the difficulty in doing business with them, not necessarily about organising an event, but I mean, we talked to Toast Martinborough and Rotary in relation to the fair. I think they would confirm the difficulties in doing business with them. And certainly we had examples from a business owner of the costs involved when part of a street side business had to have repairs done through some damage, and the cost of the traffic management plan, et cetera, seemed to be astronomical relative to what they were trying to fix there. So we've heard that sort of commentary, but not directly to the point of an event.
Yeah, just on that. So there has been it's not a situation where it's been denied, but in the challenge in event applications, having to go through a process to get to the closure point, because of the management plan around that, if you've got quite a small event, and this happened last year with the Christmas event in town, they couldn't proceed with the application from the cost and finding a management consultant to put such a tiny event through to get to Waka Kotahi.
So
There's a step in the middle. Yeah.
So
So
community activity rather than a business activity.
yes, yeah. So, but sort of an event that would look to seek road closure for something to go ahead, which I mean, last year played into a bigger picture from a business presentation of an event that we were trying to build on. So yeah, there is some challenges in processing that middle part.
Thanks. I'll just go to councillor Maynard, who's got her hand up there. Go ahead, thanks.
Hi, guys. Sorry. Thank you so much for coming in and presenting. I think there's probably been a bit of misinformation. What's been given to us is the road closure of State Highway 53 permanently, and not once was Ted Preston's thing with regards to pedestrianising mentioned as being the document that was being referred back to when it came to this from 2020. So what is being proposed is not what Ted Preston, if I'm understanding you correctly, is not what Ted Preston put forward, because you wouldn't be looking at permanently pedestrianising, which is what his paper was with regards to. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Yeah.
Thanks. So I think that's where the confusion may have been. So look, apologies for that, and I'm happy to speak anytime with regards to that. I guess I'd just like to know your thoughts with regards to the rural businesses. Being the Martinborough Business Association, I understand that the impacts with regards to the urban, you're talking about urban businesses, I'm assuming. Do you have a lot of rural businesses who have an appetite for this? Because I'm just thinking about the costs we currently have with regards to our rural roads.
No, the bulk of our members are urban business owners. So no, we don't have a rural perspective of it.
Yeah. Okay. No, I just wasn't sure if like Hinakura or any of those parts were also part of the association. And I guess that's where one of my major concerns would be is looking at council taking over these roads when we're having difficulty managing the roads we currently have and costings to all of our ratepayers. So that's all I just wanted to say. Ngā mihi.
Thank you, councillor Maynard. Councillor Bond.
Yeah, thanks, thanks so much, for your presentation. Do the businesses pay a fee to be a part of the events that are put on? When these events are put on, we'll talk about, like, say, Toast, are they paying a fee to help pay for the traffic management, or is that?
No.
So they're not being charged at all?
No.
The events put on, no charge to them, they pay nothing for this?
Whoever the event organiser is, wears that cost.
So they're not contributing to the cost of the traffic management?
Yes, yeah.
Those side streets are still going to have to be locked off, right?
Yep.
So that point doesn't change at all. Are you currently paying two fees, one to council and one to Waka Kotahi, or one fee? For traffic management.
Oh, that I'm not sure.
I think that depends on who manages the management plan and who.
Question, but
It should be confirmed.
So is the idea here then not to have to pay a fee going forward at all? And
No.
council will subsidise this?
no. I think businesses accept that there will be a fee somewhere along the line. The ability to deal with local manager who knows the area locally may provide opportunities to customise whatever the solution has to be, say for a traffic management plan or whatever, and thereby sort of perhaps lower the cost by comparison with the one size fits all type approach that Waka Kotahi appears to have.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
For the opportunity cost probably.
I'm right.
Councillor Palmer, thank you, Bob.
Yes, the businesses on State Highway 2 and up to Princess Street down to the square, are they all members of your organisation? Or what's the percentage?
But most of them are, yeah. A couple are not, but most are.
So in terms of percentage of businesses in Great and Marlborough, what sort of numbers are we talking?
Well, we have,
Highway 2.
our current membership is 82 local businesses are members of the association. Some of that 82 are not quite paid up at the minute, but they have been billed.
If you're just looking at the businesses on State Highway 2 though, I would say 90% of the own,
Certainly higher into the
yeah,
square.
sort of into the
Sorry,
square.
he meant State Highway 53, I think.
Sorry.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, so if we yeah. I
Great.
think the biggest thing is that comparison from a standard road cost versus a state highway.
Thanks so much for the presentation, Ellen and Charlotte. Thanks for the questions, councillors. Just to let you know that in a previous council meeting, there was the paper presented to council, and the result of that paper was that an action item within council was raised to request a report from officers on the process of requesting Waka Kotahi to terminate State 53 and hand it back to council. So that process has already been initiated from last month. It is certainly the work will take place. I don't think, well, at the moment, there's probably a number of other items on the council's agenda which are probably higher priority, but be rest assured we will be asking questions and to ensure that work continues.
Cool.
So again, thanks so much. The members' report will be heard in our agenda a bit later on in the meeting. So I don't know whether you've got other business to attend to or you'd like to come back later to hear that being discussed. Probably up to you.
You would leave it to you good people to do.
Okay. Much. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Next item for public participation is Martinborough Primary School. Craig Nielsen, our principal. Oh, no, it's not Craig.
I'm Mark Guscott here.
They don't even look similar.
Could you just introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, morning Chair, morning Mr Mayor, morning staff, morning councillors. Mark Guscott's my name. I'm the Board of Trustees Chair. And this is Nahui Abars, our school executive officer, who pretty much runs the Round the Vines event for our school, which is our major school fundraiser. So we hold that in normal times once a year. And so we're here to speak in favour of the alterations to State Highway 53, where it finishes. I mean, we've circulated a paper, so presumably I'll take it as read. So really the three main issues for us are, first one being safety, the second one being time, and the thirdly one being money. The main issue is for us to run a safe school event, obviously. And whether we're using Waka Kotahi and the district council or not doesn't really change in terms of safety. It's still that's our highest priority, everyone to get home and have a successful school event. So probably the main issue for us, because we're a team of volunteers that run this event, is time. I mean, probably don't need to argue too much about, none of us seem to have much time these days to do stuff. And so it's run by a small team of volunteers that Nahui is in charge of. So having to double up the workload, dealing with Waka Kotahi, and the Business Association spoke about that as well. It's really an issue for us in terms of time, having to replicate what we do with the district council, who are good to deal with. We have the same people to deal with year in, year out. And so it makes kind of life a lot easier. And to be fair, the district council has a vested interest in the school being successful and And that sort of thing where, I mean, I'm not suggesting the Waka Kotahi doesn't have that at heart, but when you're dealing with different people every year, year in, year out in Wellington, who are dealing with projects such as Transmission Gully and closing State Highway 2 for various things, I mean, it's small fry really. So we just need the event to run smoothly and easily. I mean, we would save a little bit of money on there, and as stated in the paper, it's a cost of another MacBook for a kid, so it's notable. But mostly it's about time, because we've got a team of volunteers that run it. It's pretty important that it runs smoothly. So
And easily.
yeah, that's right. Do you have any?
Yeah, and that's exactly it. Our team of 5 to 6 core volunteers who organise this event put in hours of work. And when I started managing this event, I was given a folder, quite literally this thick on compliance. Now that's only got worse as the years have gone on. So the complexity of running this event for the school is quite high, and there's a lot of moving parts. So if we're able to take this one moving part out and allow us to only have to deal with the local council who understand our goals and what we're trying to achieve, it does actually make our life a lot easier. So on that note, that's why we'd like to support the Mayor's paper on this.
That's great.
Currently, just sorry to interrupt you, but currently the main issue is the competitors come out of Palliser, the gateway, they run towards the square, maybe 100 metres, and then cross State Highway 2 into 53, sorry, again, the same problem. State Highway 53 into the paddocks and across down to the vineyard. So it's only a small area. So in a specific terms, if the State Highway 53 finished at the Palliser gateway or west of that, then that would be ideal for our specific event. I can't speak for other events, but is the kind of the main point for us.
Yep.
So you've supplied us with the invoice from traffic management for Waka Kotahi. So that's, and you'd also be having an invoice from SWDC for traffic management as well, would you?
It's all built into one. So the copy that's been attached is the Fulton Hogan quote. So we have to engage a third party person to help us organise this. We don't have that skill set in-house. And we also have, I'm not sure, has anyone ever been or seen the Round the Vines?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So there are many locations around Martinborough that we have to have marshals at, or people who are slowing roads down and signs and things like that. So Fulton Hogan type people are the people who do that for us. They go out and set all that out to make sure that we are complying with our traffic management course and paperwork, and ensuring that we are compliant with everything from a safety point of view. So it is only one invoice. It does include the SWDC fees.
Okay, thanks. Great, we're just about out of our 5 minutes, but I saw that Councillor Maynard had her hand up. Have you got some questions?
Yes, please. Thanks. Just one really. Just wondering, have you, as the complexities have grown, have you talked to the council about working with someone to go through that plan, because they've got the specialists, I guess, that would be able to help with that, and to be able to actually manoeuvre it.
Yeah, absolutely, Pip. So Rachel Griffiths is our lady who manages this portion of Round the Vines for us, and she's in contact with the council. The person she deals with at the moment's name now escapes me, but because of the complexity, we still require a third party to actually come and work with us to do it. So we don't have any choice in that, but it's a triangle that we are happy to work within. But when you add in the Waka Kotahi complexity, where their risk matrix is so different to our own, it just adds time and complexity to it. So if we can take that out, that would be awesome. And that's what we have to support. But the council overall, we have been very, very helpful.
Thank you for that, Nahuya. Much appreciated.
Okay, perfect.
Great, thanks. Any other questions from Councillor? Councillor Bosley?
Sorry, thanks, through the chair. So you've applied for the traffic management system over a number of years now?
Yes. Yes.
And so do you have to reinvent the wheel every time you apply? We're sure there's a template now for that just gets resubmitted.
There is, but things do change over time. And so we do have to be cognizant of changes. And our event has grown, you know, the traffic coming into Martinborough has grown. How we do it changes slightly. So usually we can cookie cutter it, right? You know, we've got a template for most of this stuff, but that doesn't, someone still has to do it. And we are still volunteers. We are all full-time workers. We're all mums, most of us. Actually, we're all mums. So it's just another level of complexity where if we don't have to deal with that, makes just a little bit easier for ourselves.
Yeah, I think I just noticed, like, you're still gonna have to deal with that because we still have to put a traffic management plan in place, right?
We do.
That's supposed to happen. So I'm just a bit confused. Is it a question of volunteers or is it a question of saving $400? Because $400 doesn't seem like a lot of money.
No, that's 5 or 6 extra runners that we have to do. As you've seen, the cost of our traffic management plan is $5,000. We're a school fundraising event. None of us make money out of this but the school. And this.
Like being a councillor, really?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
there's never enough money to go around, is there?
Need to go around. But our money goes straight back into providing the bigger for our school that the ministry does not pay for. So it's a very complex process to go through and form. And we only do it once a year, and it takes extra time to do it.
And every year, it seems to be a different person at Waka Kotahi than,
Deal with.
so it's maybe re-educate them every time, even though there's a template, it's still not quite as straightforward as that.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's great. Thanks so much. Thanks very much for the presentation. Thanks for the questions.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks very much.
Guys. Right, next person to speak for public participation is Don McCleary. You like, you're in the back row, Don, you'd like to come up to the front?
Hey, can I just add that first? I see you're not running for a schedule because
Oh, we are.
I think I was there last saying, but so can someone address us on the what does Waka Kotahi's denial of the funding mean to the reconstruction of Hinakura Road? So that I just blindsided by it in the newspaper 2 days ago, a day ago. And I'd rather hear that first before I address you guys.
Come up and sit up here at the table. I think would you like to talk to that, Stefan, or?
Do you want a briefing?
I'm just wondering, just briefly, Don, I think from my understanding of that letter is that Waka Kotahi has supplied that information to council and just given us an indication of where their view of funding is at.
So is it totally denied, or is it 14 million's denied and we're revisiting 11 million, or
from my reading is that
percentage of the funding?
that a high cost option of 14 million would only receive 20% funding from Waka Kotahi for that high cost option. Yet a lower cost option would possibly receive 75% funding from Waka Kotahi. That's my view of that letter.
And that's what they've indicated to you guys.
Council, you think that's what we're working.
No, it's not the funding's gone.
No,
Like, yeah.
we're working.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to be discussing here today, later on in the meeting.
Okay, cool.
Okay, that's the question, Don.
Yep, no, that's
And everyone else from Hinakura?
everyone got that part, like it just, in your face, funding gone, yeah. Like,
Thanks, Bex.
if you could email us that, a little bit of detail around that or something, so we feel we're still on track. So we are still on track to reconnect the Hinakura Road. Yeah.
And that's what we're going to be discussing here later on.
Yeah, sweet. So really, I'm Don McCreary, farmer out Hinakura, landowner, and got another business outside of Hinakura that travel to. Just here to point out, just try and roll off a few facts, and I stand correction in what I've presented. Not, I'm not a bloody analyst or whatever on all the documents. I haven't had time to. So quickly just jotted down yeah, so we're talking about the big slump section in the Hunakura Road. Went out for good in June last year, so a year ago now. And that was after watching it for years going like ready to go down the hill and substandard maintenance on it, no drainage put in. You can argue that wasn't going to stop it, but I can argue it would have given it a shot. So we're sort of going back to that, but moving forward, it's talking about that, sort of haven't got a road reconnecting it yet. It was publicly, so I created an access for the residents in Hunakura with the Hancocks, find permission through their land as well. And it was publicly agreed that the access I've created with the Hancocks would not impede or delay South Wairarapa District getting Hunakura Road reinstated. I now feel I have slowed progress by creating this access. So just a reminder, I mean, that's private access, what I've created. I'm sharing it, and it's not a public road and it can be closed at any time. So it's not a council road and we need our road reconstructed. So in a meeting to the Hunakura residents, maybe a month ago or so, it was stated that an $11 million road construction to reconnect the Hunakura Road is supported as economically viable for the Hunakura District, as per presentation to Hunakura residents by South Wairarapa District Council. So that means 11 million works economically to put that road back in. So if you're running a big business, it's on, so it should still be on. And that was touted as the highest cost reconnection, which I don't believe we do. We need, hopefully we don't have to go there, Landowners have not had any communication around land acquisition or the likes and how it may impact us. So that's, I believe, me and the Hancocks, where the reconnection road would go. I'm probably can't speak for them, but I'm pretty sure that's right. We haven't had any direct sort of communication around land acquisition and reconnecting that thing. So just pointing that out. The engineers, WSP, have not carried out the testing of the routes, in particular part of what I believe is the most viable route through the top section of the slump. So that's a hard sheet of papa. We're hoping that the slump's moved off. It hasn't been tested. Over summer would have been a perfect time to dig some holes and find that papa. They reported to us in that report that they hadn't done those pilot holes. Their resources were pulled out to test and report on the unviable Admiral route. So I'm just pointing out that they were directed out there, and I believe it wasted their time and wasted our progression, probably wasted a lot of money. So just going forward, what I believe the Hunakura residents and ratepayers and businesses need, a quick, low-cost temporary route created straight or slightly raised through the slump area. Now the slump's looking as stable, and the engineers have said that with their testing of the movement of it. You can fly around figures, but it costs $175,000 to put a massive road in what we did up the top, massive for a farm track. So I'm sure putting a light vehicle road to start to begin with just through the slump would be well below that. You're just talking of a 80-metre section as opposed to 2 kilometres, what we did. So, so we need that as a quick fix. It would make sense to put it in about September, October, when it's gonna last for the summer, if it does move again from winter, the following winter. So get the summer out of it. And then this is to get us through while the best long-term roading solution is created, what is being worked on, I believe. So, and now it's touted as that being at least 2 years away. So which initially I put in our farm track, it was going to work for even 6 months, was a possibility that it was worth putting in just for 6 months use. So now we've got about 3 years out of it. So it's looking like, this long-term roading solution with good drainage plans executed. The rest of the Hinakura Road, and I'll just talk in particular the tar sealed road infrastructure beyond the slump and just before the slump, but needs to be brought up to speed, including drainage plans executed immediately on 2 major slumping sections above and below our house on 1974 Hinakura Road. These sections, if undrained immediately and unrepaired, will cut us off once again and create more devastating costs for South Wairarapa District Council. So it's just the maintenance and doing drainage and things, it's just ballooning cost for you guys. I just can't believe if I was running it as a business, you're just into getting the water. Water's urgent, like getting it away. And so I reported the slump section. It took about a month before a digger got there and you can argue because of the Cyclone Gabriel and that, but it was just all that's exaggerated, all overblown because there's no drains there. There's the table drains are full and everything, and now the section's moving down just above our house. And don't just look at the road, look at above it where you can drain the water off so we can just keep our roads stable, you know. It'll save you money, like save us money, save rates, everything. And
Thanks.
yeah. So what are our other options? I mean, do we go it ourselves, keep our roads right and not pay rates or something? Like, is that what we have to go to now? I don't know.
It's certainly, Don, I mean, we're going to be discussing today the reinstatement and what plan and what option we go through for the Hinakura Road, and that's one of 3 big items on our agenda today. I'm going to try and bring it forward into the earlier part of the business. So if you guys wanted to stay around to partake and listen, to listen and on what's being discussed, that would be great. I know you've got a lot of questions. We probably can't answer them right now, right here, but certainly I'm keen to hear feedback from some questions from other councillors that councillors may have of you. We just probably need to keep it a bit more tighter so that we can get on to the people who are sitting here for public participation. I know Grant and others want to speak.
Great. So yeah, just want to see that urgency and the plan that's going along. See that it's still track along rather than things sitting. And I know when you...
And I know you're frustrated by the process, but these are processes that we as council need to go through with not only with Waka Kotahi, but also with the engineers and all the rest of it. And we're wanting that process. I know you're wanting that process to happen yesterday. We want that process to happen as fast as possible as well, but we're probably just constrained by other means outside but we'll get there.
Yeah, I appreciate what that's.
I just want to stay there, and some other councillors might ask you questions.
Yeah. Sorry.
If anyone's got questions for Don?
Thanks, Aidan. Thanks for coming along, Don, and everyone else from Hinakura. That's good to see a good crowd. Do you feel, I'm being up there since the meeting, the slips further down the road towards your place and the ones at Hancock's before the big slip, are they still moving constantly? Are you noticing the roads dropping a bit more? Or?
They're in danger. Yeah, I suppose they have. So they filled it, come out and chucked a little bit of asphalty, whatever you call that stuff, bitumen and over it. And they skimmed a little nick of a table drain where the hill just keeps bulging down. So it was 2 hours work that they were there for. And yeah, I tried to get them. They weren't going to do the table drain. I went up and asked if they could. Yeah. So yeah, it's probably dropped that much more. Like more of a rise in two sections, another bit down further. Yeah, watch the digger go past that. The table drain wasn't running out properly, could have been cleaned.
Yeah.
But so that's a roading reporter coming out or something, you know, right, this section needs doing this, because the digger operator needs to have that on his agenda apparently to be able to touch it, otherwise he gets in trouble.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so I support them on that, you know, like,
The-
so no major movement, just in real danger of movement. So the water is still getting to those areas and going to cause havoc. Like we're as wet as we've ever been. If that whole section drops, it's just like, it's probably another 100 grand. You guys can,
Yeah, and we're moving into the wettest part
I
of
like,
it, so it really
yeah.
needs to be looked at.
so we'd just run a digger up there like 2 days before the contractor came out. So he just cleared that table drain
Yeah.
anyway. Oh, that was another time, but
Yeah.
Lockie was passing by, so yeah.
Thanks, Don.
No, thanks, Don.
Anyone else got any more questions? Thanks a lot for that, Don.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, we'll get our decision made. If you wanted to sit and wait for it and see the discussion, you're welcome to do so.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And yeah, just appreciate what the council has done with our funding, the roading I put in and things. So yeah, don't get me wrong, it's want to see progress just came in. Yeah.
Thanks, Don. Thanks for coming in, Don. Grant, would you like to come up and morning, Grant.
My name's Grant Muir. I've lived at 172 Moeraki Road for over 20 years. And so I've had, you know, got a fair bit of experience with the Hinakura Road, getting in and out of Hinakura. It's something that is a road that's always been subject to slumping and slipping. However, in the past, maintenance was kept up on that road. And when there was a slip or a slump, within 2 or 3 weeks, contractors would be out there fixing it. Now, I don't believe there's been a population increase in Hinakura over the 20 years. I don't think there's really been a huge increase in trucks using that road or traffic using that road. What has happened over the last 20 years is maintenance has dwindled to almost zero. The last 5 years, maintenance on Moeraki Road and Hinakura Road has been non-existent. And I would believe that's probably because of funding and Fulton & Hogan's been screwed on price to the extent that they can't actually do the maintenance or do so little maintenance, it's just minimal and it's not effective. Some of the reasons behind that, you know, you talk to the grader driver or someone that comes out on the side of the road and you have a bit of a yarn. Oh, you know, can you guys just see that bit over there on the other side of the road? You know, that just needs a bit of a flick with the digger. Oh, no, we can't do that. Why? Because they're GPSed, they're regimented to such a degree now that they can only do this within the scope that they're sent out to work with. So that means when they come back to do the other bit, they've got to do all the transport costs and all those other costs are doubled up again. And this is what is occurring. So basically the council's not getting maintenance done any cheaper. It's actually costing it a hell of a lot more and maintenance isn't being done. Now, I'll give you some examples. The water tables on Hinakura Road and Moeraki Road have not been touched for 18 months. That's even after Cyclone Gabriel. Now, Cyclone Gabriel flooded the lower end of Moeraki Road for a distance of about 4 kilometres, 2 metres of water. Now, no one even came and put a grader over that road after the cyclone. It wasn't until the sharing gangs got stuck and local farmers and me with my digger were pulling them out that suddenly a grader miraculously appeared. The culverts on that road are full of shingle. No one's even touched them. No, it's probably not even down on the list to do. Now, if the water tables aren't done and the culverts aren't done, then slumping that Don's talking about and other aspects of the road deteriorate very, very quickly. 20 years ago, those were done. And okay, the road slumped and slipped and carried on like it is now, but because the maintenance was done, we were able to keep up with the cost of keeping that road open. And it's a vital lifeline for us. Moeraki Road could fail now at any minute. the 1-lane bridge after the hall is ready to go. Gabriel just about took it out. You know, we've seen the stream and the water go right over that a number of times in high water events, and it's just about ready to go. No one's even looked at it. If that bridge goes, the Hinakura community's cut off again. If Moiraki Road, I mean, after the cyclone, Don and his farm worker Ricky were clearing a culvert just so that the water could get away down by Marylands. So, I mean, what I'm saying is the maintenance and care and upkeep of the road isn't good enough, let alone thinking about spending 11 million building a new access. And it is vital that an access is punched through that slip, that we get some big machines in there and have a dig around. It's vital that that happens ASAP. Then we'll know just what we're dealing with, because at the moment, you know, there's a whole lot of guesswork and even the engineers can't tell us. So to give you an example, I run a consented event on my property every year. And that event attracts about 1,000 people. And it was a big plus for the Martinborough business community because they had 1,000 people from Wellington coming through. They'd clean out Payne and Kershaw's, you know, and they'd do all that. Now, this year, I had to run that as a loss because 1/3 of the tickets I sell didn't sell. So my normal numbers dropped by 1/3, all due to the fact that people had to come by Admiral and Clifton Grove. People were not prepared to travel that road. Where there's been homestays where they're getting reviews in Hinakura saying, love the place, great homestay, pity it wrecked my car getting there. You know, this is not acceptable. You know, all we get in Hinakura for our rates really is the road. If we deal with everything else, all our rubbish collection, all that's dealt with, and we have to go, some of us, to quite great lengths to do that environmentally. We expect the road to at least be open. Now, we've got 2 access tracks. We've got Don's track and we've got Roger's track. Roger's track, I'd say, don't go on it. I just about got stuck in it once and I'll never go on it again. I've seen a lot of people get pulled out of there, even motorbikes recently. Don's track's great. Don's done a great job, him and Ricky, maintaining it. And it's kept the Hinakura community together because all of our businesses in Martinborough. And without that, I don't really know what would happen. You know, the farmers wouldn't be able to get farm workers would leave, all that sort of thing. But, you know, they would, even now I feel for them, you know, they got to get a truck over Clifton Grove Road. A lot of truck drivers won't drive that road. They'll refuse it, or costs will go up and continue to go up for farming businesses. So, you know, I'm appealing to the council as a long-term resident and also as someone that runs a farm business there to at least get some big machinery into that slip ASAP, dig it out, have a good look at it. And if we can punch through there and at least, as Don was saying, get a light vehicle access going ASAP, that would be a major plus for us all. I think that, you know, if we do find hard ground there, it wouldn't take too much then to get a heavy vehicle access. I think it's imperative that a heavy vehicle access is reinstated within the next 12 months. We've got farm values going backwards. We've got farm businesses not able to employ labour. We've got contractors not prepared to come to Hinakura because of the road. So I think it's vital, and we don't need to spend 11 million. I think this could come well under that if we take that common sense approach, which seems to be something that's difficult to make happen these days. So that's my submission to council and my appeal to council that they look at those common sense options, and also that we get a report back on when we're going to get the water tables done in the area. Just talking to the grader driver, the person who was employed to do it initially couldn't do it because he reckoned that Fulton's price, it was just too low, it was uneconomic. So there has been someone, I think, just recently contracted to do the job that's got the right machinery. That needs doing urgently, and so do those culverts. Otherwise, there'll be even bigger costs. We won't even have a Moiraki Clifton Grove access. We'll be stranded again.
Thanks for coming in, Grant. Thanks for your submission to us. Questions from the table? Councillor Woolcock.
Yes, thanks for coming, Grant. You sound like a man that's been out there a while and knows a little bit about what's gone on over the years with the so with the grading side of it, the grader drivers, when they're out there doing the road, when they do go out, one, how long between sort of trips is your road done? Is it monthly, 3 monthly, or?
It's on a rostered cycle. I wouldn't be able to tell you whether it's 2 months, every 3 months, but there's obviously a contract and he has to do it so many times a year. And because of that, he'll often grade it at times when probably shouldn't be a grader on the road because it's raining and things like that.
Exactly.
And talking to him too, he's GPS, he's regulated strictly. If he does more than the scope or goes outside his GPS coordinates, he gets wrapped over the knuckles by his bosses. Yeah.
Are they, so in the old days, most of the good grader drivers, and unfortunately we've lost a lot of that skill over the years, on the gravel roads, could clean out the water tables all at the same time. Do you find that gets done, or is it?
No, the grader drivers don't do the water tables. No, not allowed to touch them. Yeah.
See something that's worth doing, sorry. If they can see something's worth doing, if they did it, they'll get fired. One of them said he got a written warning.
Yeah.
From doing something like that.
Yeah. So in the old,
Thanks, Don.
the grader driver, if you slipped him a dozen beer, would even do your driveway as he come past. No, but those days are gone. The water table guy has a bucket on a digger, properly shaped bucket that drags along and digs out that water table trench. But even he is GPS, like if he sees there's something that he's not supposed to do, he can't go over there and do it. He has to go home, wait till the supervisor comes out. Oh, we've got to do that bit, then he's got to come all the way back out. So you get this very expensive.
System's flawed.
The system's flawed. Yeah, and I think this is what we're fighting, Aidan, is that we've got a system that's working against us, trying to get things done.
I used to do a lot of the roading around here, so I had a similar incident when I was at Oldfields, where my foreman that I was working with on the day gave me a kick up the bum because I cleared a slip that I drove past. It took me all of about 30 seconds, but he said his view was, no, that's a different job. We get to come out on Saturday and do that. And I actually went back then and told young Mr. Oldfield what I thought about that theory. Yeah, so it's been
that continues to the day, probably more extreme now than it's ever been. Yeah. I know we're pressed for time. So
Thanks very much, mate. Appreciate it, Grant.
Thank you, Grant.
Thanks everyone for coming to speak to us and in public participation. Well, now I know we're getting behind time, so item A5, actions from public participation. I think most of the Hinakura issues we're certainly going to be addressed or talking to in later on in the Partnerships and Operations Group report. Has anyone got any comment? Conley.
Well, I've got an action. I mean, the comment that we've heard just now relates very much to the nature of the contracts that we use. And I would propose a workshop to consider alternative contracting arrangements for the future.
Okay, do we?
Sorry, it's a workshop to consider contracting arrangements
For the future for road?
Well, we can't change the contract we've got right now, but
just for roading.
For roading?
I think
it's broader than.
I think, Mark, you might be jumping to the solution rather than looking at it. You're jumping ahead rather than actually have a workshop and look at our Rimahanga Roads contract, and is it the purpose is it doing what we expect it to do? If not, then that the solution you're talking about. So maybe actually getting Tim to come in, and I've spoken to Stefan about this, is actually have a 101 workshop on our Rimahanga Roads contract so that everybody understands what's in there and what's supposed to provide for us.
At a level
At a level of service. And if we're not at the right levels of service, then we can actually have the conversation about how do we change that. But I think you're sort of leaping to the solution rather than actually saying, where is the problem here? And I agree, there's a problem with some of this, but at the moment, we spend millions and millions of dollars on a contract. We need to make sure that contract is fit for purpose first. So I would look.
Paul, couple of 3 weeks ago, you proposed some workshops about the strategic direction and
Yes, indeed. So,
and was the contract, was there a proportion of one of those workshops targeting
yes, it was. So, things the workshops, author, roading, and a number of other things for councillors specifically. Be a good opportunity then to revisit levels of service and what we want those contracts to look like moving.
So have we got any?
We're in the process of plugging them in now.
Right. Would that be suffice, Mayor Connolly? Or
Well, until I know a few more details, I possibly could comment. I think the issue though is that actually it isn't levels of service. It's actually the nature of the contract. And the issue that we've heard a couple of times today goes back to the nature of the contract. A different type of contract would never give rise to that type of issue. I mean, if we just try and tighten up the contract we've got, specify a higher level of service possibly, what we are not giving ourselves the possibility of doing is working with a different type of contract in the first place. I mean, the one we've got may well be the best of all possible contracts, but I doubt it. And we have to be open for alternatives.
right.
But we have to know what those alternatives are.
So
Through you, Mr. Chair, would it be appropriate then to answer the mayor's request for that workshop to clearly outline the current conditions of contracts, but also bring to the table other options for the future? So it's more than just the what we do, but how we do it. Is that appropriate, Mr. Mayor? Yep.
we will fold that into the one workshop. Yeah.
So
Councillor Maynard?
firstly, is it possible that we just look at the contract that's for rural roading? I think that trying to put through all of the contracts all at once, I think everything gets blurred. That's just my thoughts on that one. But I was wondering when, with regards to Alan Hogg's participation, and I just he did mention something about a cost benefits analysis to have a look at with regards to businesses, and I was wondering if that could be part of, or as much as we can. I mean, I know that we don't have the ability to go in, we're not the bank, and ask for people's where they're at, where their businesses are at, but we could actually have a look at or possibly with the Martinborough Business Association to see what the cost benefit analysis is for with regards to closing that road when it comes to the businesses. And that because I know that we are still waiting on a report before we take that further. So just while we're talking about actions from public participation, if that could possibly be something that we look at. And the other one was, sorry, just bear with me. Is that again on a broad spectrum, like what was in the paper with regards to the Hinakura Road was it did mention about the fact that it wasn't economically viable, and I think almost in the same way with regards to a cost benefits analysis, if there was some way to, because I absolutely disagree with that, with our district and the economic pain that I believe is happening with regards to our Hinakura residents with their businesses, which is their farms, and the amount of additional work and things that they're having to do. And I think it might be beneficial for that too. to have some analysis on seeing what the economic impact has been on them over this time, having that road go out.
So, councillor Maynard, so we've done, so WSP have done the initial cost benefit analysis or the economic analysis.
But I don't believe that any of the farmers we've spoken to with regards to that on how much so that they you know, how they able to say how much money was lost by the farmers? You know, I mean, these are big businesses in the South Wairarapa district. This is a district concern. And you know, I think that we would be remiss in not having that information.
I think, councillor Pip, the reports that we've received from WSP and I suppose you could look at that letter from Wakatahi do favour reinstatement. No one's saying that we don't reinstate the road. The Wakatahi letter refers to their economic analysis and that they won't fund to the higher level of 75% that high cost remediation. However, I don't think there is anything anywhere in our paperwork or our report saying that we're not going to go down the path of reinstating that road at all.
Oh, no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that when it comes to the analysis on the impact that has been caused, comments like that there are in there that make it look like it was a low economic impact. I'm saying I don't agree with that.
I certainly don't agree with it either. I mean, we all know that there's been a high economic impact to our business and our ratepayers and residents at Hinakura. I think, and we're certainly taking that on board, and we've heard that today in our submissions and with the number of Hinakura residents we've got here today. I think, you know, we're going to make that decision this morning, and on which option to progress with as soon as we can.
Okay, thanks, Adam.
Thanks, Pip. Councillor Woodcock.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I'm very much in Pip's camp on this. If you took the turnover of all those farms out there, the economic impact of the value of money and that spent over a year would be quite phenomenal. I can't see how NZTA have come up with their conclusion without having all that information. It's sort of the reverse of what we were given by our engineers, impact on that road has on the community and everything else. So I would like to look into that, have that looked into a bit more. On the State Highway 53, is that you in the corner there, Tim? Yeah. You're hiding. You might be able to answer this question. Back in the day, State Highway 2, even when it reached I think it was 10,000 vehicles a day to become the level 1 or whatever for traffic management, they kept it at level 2 within the Wairarapa because there was no companies with the traffic management trucks and everything that could run it at that level. That was correct, Dave? We're talking sort of 15, 20 years ago. They left it for a long time at the low level.
Councillor Woodcock, can we just perhaps have that discussion a bit later on? Because we're still sort of trying to get.
Well, it's just an action, like a thing to action on the State Highway 53. It's just a question that I can't do it without Tim knowing, Tim answering this. Is there any way with the NZTA to come up with an approval for us to run that last little section on the traffic management? So we run it like at a lower level because it's just a dead end street into the end of town rather than as if it's a main state highway in the middle of the country. Is there anything we can do in that regard?
The private justification is dependent on volumes. And State Highway 53 is State Highway 3, you can't compare. I think it's all moving towards risk analysis, so. Suppose going forward, the answer is yes.
You know, so the council could possibly come to an agreement with Waka Kātahi to have traffic management control for certain events on that little short section of road to make it easier.
Well, I suppose the cost of traffic management is not submission and compliance. It's the cost of having a plant employees on the ground that day. So that's not going to change.
Yeah, I'm just thinking more of the ease so that they don't have to deal with people in Wellington and our council, that our council sort of can do the whole bit. Is that possible at all or not?
No, we're not the RCA on the state of highway, so we can't.
Can't do that. We can't come to an.
We just perhaps take that question offline later on and we do it with emails between councillors and our roading team. So, thanks. Are there any more actions from public participation? I think we've got an item here for extraordinary business. And that's infrastructure and community services. So we will just under extraordinary business like to seek clarification from Mr. Corbett about the funding and the remediation of flooding at Super Value in Featherston, that as it was reported in the Wairarapa Times Age on the 20th of May 2023. And we could hold that item at the moment and then deal with that in the agenda item B1, if that's okay, Stephen, which is right. So could we please have a mover for that extraordinary item of business? Thanks, Councillor Clement. Seconder, Councillor Woodcock. And Stefan will deal with that in P&O report in B1. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. Against? No, that motion is carried. Councillor Maynard, sorry, I saw your hand raised.
That was in favour.
Oh, thank you. Apologies for being not quite on the uptake. Okay.
Yeah, I had to quickly lower it when you said against. I was like, oh.
Thanks for that, Pip. Now moving on to A7, confirmation of minutes. Do I have a mover to confirm the minutes for infrastructure and community services meeting held on the 13th of April 2023, a true and correct record? Councillor Saddler-Footer, thank you for moving that. And do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Plymouth, thank you. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, please say no. That motion is carried. Thanks very much. Matters arising from previous minutes. Are there any matters arising from those minutes from last month? Or sorry, from the 13th of April. No matters arising. Thanks very much, team. Now we're moving on to agenda item B, decision reports of the Chief Executive and staff. The B1 is an update from Partnerships and Operations Group. Stefan, would you like to come to the table and
Right here, Chair.
That way I can rally step up.
All right, good morning, everyone.
pleased to submit this report. I'll take it as read. But I did want to run through a few items in it, if that's okay, before you ask questions and we sort of probe it more deeply. Or would you like to just dive right in, Chair, and take the whole paper as read?
Could we start with the Hinakura?
Yep.
So first, can I ask, do I have to ask for a removal? Or just accept the report?
You can do it.
We'll start with the Hinakura side.
Yep.
Of the report, if that's okay, please.
So as far as management's concerned, where we hope we are now, and this is subject to your confirmation and the discussion today, but where we hope we are now is at a point where councillors, elected members, and have had enough information to really give us guidance on a preferred option. All that we've done up until now has been to get us to a point where we make a decision on a preferred option, and then that option will be taken forward to engineered plans that are consented, that have got the necessary legal permissions behind them. And then we take that and we tender it, and then we build. So everything up until now, I know has been slower than people want, but the ambition is to get councillors to a point where you feel comfortable that you can make a decision on a preferred option. Now, the WSP report outlined those options over the slip, through the slip. Don't do it at all. And remediate the Admiral Hill route instead. We've been through all of those options in quite a lot of detail. We've workshopped them. They're the subject of engineering reports. You've had supplementary information on the options, which I hope has been useful. The Waka Kotahi letter, which has come in very recently, was a shot across the bows. And it is serious. I think an earlier question was asked, is this real? Is this tested advice? Yes, it is. Waka Kotahi are quite staunch in their view of that low risk but high cost option, and they're not willing to fund it. So that has definitely got to come into our thinking now. The WSP report, of course, found economic benefit, found value in that higher option, and that advice has been refuted by Waka Kotahi, and they're the funder, and we have to take their word on that. Just because Waka Kotahi doesn't want to fund it doesn't mean that this council isn't able to fund it, obviously. You still have all the options available to you. You have all of the options on the table, and you can choose any one of them and fund it, but obviously much less desirable to fund that higher, that most expensive option through rates or through debt. But it does remain an option available to you. There's been a lot of talk in this meeting and previously about punching a road through the slip, even a light vehicle road, and that of course is available to us as an option. I did just want to point out though that that is a high risk option, and it's not supported by our engineers in WSP or our in-house engineer, because you could find that you spent a couple of $1 million on that road, punching it through the slip, and you also had to repair the feeder roads because they're subsiding because of movement, same kind of movement through the road from above. You might spend $1 million or $2 million on that option, and in 6 months' time, you'd find that road at the bottom of the gully, which is exactly where the last road that we rebuilt on that section ended up. So if the council was to make a decision to advance the short road punch through the slip as your preferred option, you'd have to accept that risk as part of the project and accept that it was not necessarily advised by your engineers. But I don't want to really waste a lot more time here.
Question on that one.
Yeah.
So Stefan, if that's the biggest risk item, and Waka Kotahi is not going to fund the other ones, what's the recommendation from officers then?
Well, we haven't made a recommendation. You know, we haven't, at the moment, we're presenting you with options and exploring those options. And well, our preferred option up until, well, no, our preferred option is still to put the road above the slip, out of harm's way from the existing slip zone, open to all traffic, including heavy vehicles. It's on an appropriate gradient. We would like to explore that option. That's what the report says.
But that's off the table because
It's not off.
unless you want a rating for the extra $14 million.
From an engineering perspective, councillor, that's the preferred option. It's up to this table and wider council whether that's affordable. That's not an answer that that management can provide you.
Excuse me, Steve, you just have a question from council.
Two questions, possibly for Louise more than yourself, Stephen. You talked about the risk of further slipping with option 3, punching straight through the current slip. In the report under the shortlist options discussion, each option has a section for slips. And as far as I can see, each option notes that it is open to the risk of further slipping due to the nature of the terrain. Do we at this point have data to support which route is more at risk of slip? So, you know, we go with the high cost, low risk option, which is still at risk of slip, or the low cost, high risk option, still at risk of slip. Do we have confirmation at this point of one is more at risk?
Therese, I'll have a go at answering that, and if I start getting anything terribly wrong, would you tap on my shoulder? The preferred route is low risk because it has a lower risk of slip and movement. That's not to say that it won't slip and move and the active management won't be required. But it's low risk because we have chosen an alignment that has the lowest risk of movement out of the options that are available to us.
Based on science, but could do
the history of the area, the known geology of the area, the metering that they've done. But to understand that more, you'd have to put boreholes down, you'd have to use augers, you'd have to make a more concentrated analysis of the alignment. That normally is only done once you've chosen an alignment to take to engineered plans. If you do that for all your options, then you extend your process out and it's very expensive.
With that in mind, if this committee were to go with option 3 through the guts of the slip option, there is still the possibility that when that work is done of drilling the boreholes and the augering, that we do find solid.
Yes, yeah. No, if you choose to investigate, if you choose the preferred option through the slip, then the next step is for the engineers to take that more detailed examination of the area, but all I'm pointing out is that what we do know is parts of that slip are still moving in wet conditions. The upper reaches of the slip are still moving in wet conditions. There's a history of erosion and landslides in that area. We have previously rebuilt across that alignment and lost it down the valley twice. And, you know, so ongoing slope failure risk in that zone is well known to us. But yes, we would examine that much more closely and give you more detail when we were trying to advance an option to engineered plans. And I must say, it's not all doom and gloom. We have talked to Waka Kotahi about state highways that they have experienced a very catastrophic landslide on, and they have built roads through those areas before. One example is still there since 2019. It requires active management, but it is still there and possible. So it's not to say that it isn't possible.
Sorry, was just, we've talked for the high cost, low risk. This morning, we've mentioned 14 million and we've spoken about 11 million, but can I just confirm that that number is actually at this point still unconfirmed and could go north of there?
Oh, those numbers are extremely unreliable. Those are rough estimates, and we have a low level of confidence in those numbers, which is as it should be for this stage in the process.
Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Bosley.
What would be also the most expedient, quickest solution here as well, which is really option one seems to be could take several years to do. And three, which is the most expedient way of getting this done as well.
Punching a road through the slip is fastest and cheapest. It's short. It's fairly simple because of the gradients. The problem that we all face is that it's the highest risk, and we do everything we could to guarantee the integrity of a road that we put through that slip zone. But you'd have to do that in the knowledge that in another major rain event, the road can end up at the bottom of the gully again, and you would have spent $1 or $2 million on it and flushed it down the gully. So that's just the risk that you have to carry with it.
Councillor.
With that in mind, you know, if you look at the expensive option one, so it's 40 million from Wakatahi and whatever it is from us, so we'll say 20 million. We could rebuild that risk option 20 times. And we don't need to tar seal it. It can be a metal road that 80 metres or 100 metres. And I just wonder whether perhaps to proceed with this, we need to actually look seriously at option, what are they, 3 and 3A, which is the through the middle or slightly higher, and actually just get some understanding of what is there. Get them moving and accept the risk. And if it fails, okay, it fails, but we've at least made an attempt. It's $1 million as opposed to delaying this for another few years. We've just got to get these people moving.
Thanks, Councillor Plummer. Councillor Sadler-Footer first, then Councillor Wilcott and Mayor Connolly.
Stefan, if we went with a lower cost option, could we factor in a higher level of maintenance into that total price, or are they two separate things? So we go with the option that's likely to cost in the vicinity of $1 million, but we've actually been able to factor in a higher maintenance so that we can tackle some of the items that were raised this morning around drainage and culverts and water tables.
Exactly.
Does it give us that flexibility, or it's actually two separate things? One is choosing a route and the other is a roading budget that's not for discussion today.
Yeah, there's 3 different components to it. There's the cost of rebuilding the alignment, so rebuilding the road that has failed, and that's $1 or $2 million. It's an open question whether you want to accept the risk of doing that every 2 years up until a $20 million cap or whatever. but there's the cost of that road rebuild. Then there would be inevitably a higher maintenance cost. Because you'd have to really watch that road carefully. You'd have to have telemetry in it. You'd have to be very carefully, it would have to be majorly dewatered and monitored and maintained at a level higher than a normal road. That would be required for public safety. So there would be that cost. And then there would be the cost of the feeder roads, because what's happened at the failure site is happening again at different points down the road. Now, we've heard a lot of comment from people who think that water tables and culverts are responsible for major catastrophic landslides across Hanakura Road. That's not the case. I'm not saying that block culverts and water tables aren't a feature of the erosion of rural roads. They are. And I'm not saying that we couldn't do better in terms of maintaining them. I'm not saying that, but it is far too simplistic to say that culverts and water tables are responsible for what's happening on these roads, because what's happening is the entire area of the hill is moving. And even Don said himself that the hill is bulging up top and moving down, and it's causing all kinds of grief at different points before and after the failure point. So in answer to your question, the third part of it would be making sure that those feeder roads on either side are of suitable standard. So you've got there'd be a considerable cost in that as well, and we'd have to price the whole job, because there's no point in having a brand new alignment when your feeder roads aren't working and you're not maintaining the length of the road properly.
Thanks for that, Stephen. Councillor Wilson, can we just get Councillor Maynard in, because she's had a hand up for a while. Councillor Maynard, you've like to have some input?
Yes, please. Sorry, I didn't realise you couldn't see my hand. I'll try and be a little more vocal. My question, Ferez, I see that you're here, and I'd quite like to hear from you. When we spoke out at Hanakura and you presented then, and the appetite seemed to be for options 3 or 4 or both. And I think the survey that reached more of the people from there since who weren't able to come to that community meeting. The appetite seems to be there as well. I'm listening, and I understand that there's a concern about slips, but that, again, I want to reiterate what Councillor Sadler-Footer has already said, and that's that there is the concern for slips in all of the options that we've been given. And I really do want to know if option 3 as a light vehicle while we explore option 4 is an option that we might be able to look at today, and what your thoughts are on that. Thank you.
My thoughts are, I mean, I got our geotechnical experts over here as well that can support what I'm saying as well. I mean, as what Stefan mentioned earlier, from the engineering point of view, the preferred option is the higher cost option. But if you want to, if there's an option that you can manage risk, that will be the option 4, which goes through the upper slips. Yes, there will be risk, but there will be some engineering treatment over there. And I think back then we did discuss an option where you put a temporary low cost through the existing alignment, which is the lower option, and while considering the design and build of the option 4. I think that was that came out a little bit was favorable at that time. Maybe Alexi, just probably your views on option 4 from the geotechnical views.
Sure. But basically, the idea with landslides is to try and stabilize them, and that means dewatering, which is an obvious solution to stabilize landslides, but also try to unload the crest of the landslide. So Obviously, option 4, while we are constructing the road there, will partially remove the load. So option 4 is a preferred option for us. Option 3, going to the middle of the landslide, is riskier compared to option 4, in my view. But in any event, with option 3, option 4, we will need to monitor groundwater tables and provide probably very costly drainage measures. And then long-term monitoring will be required, so we can actually understand what the groundwater table is doing. And probably with option 3 and option 4, we may need to shut down the road after prolonged periods of wet weather. So there is that risk there as well. But geotechnically, if we had to choose between option 3 and option 4 would be our preference.
Thank you for that. But I guess it's great that you're both here to speak to us as well, in your capacity, because I remember as well being advised by WSP that while you had been monitoring there hadn't been large with regards to there being a lot of big weather events. There hadn't been significant slips going on in that area as well, and that included 3 and 4. Is that right?
Yep, that included 3 and 4, more predominantly on 4, where it appears to be stable, a little bit more stable than the rest.
Well, I guess we need to understand that whenever we design roads, important roads, if you look at state highways and actually council's roads as well, it's not about the absence of movement, no signs of movement of the road platform. You normally need a certain margin of safety. For example, if you got a slope and the slope seems to be stable, but you add, I don't know, 5 kPa or a couple of trucks of traffic load, and the road platform starts moving, that's where the geotechnical design, the civil design is considered to be deficient. So when we are designing roads on landslides, and we do have subdivisions on old landslides, for example, it's not uncommon in New Zealand to have that, then obviously you still want to be able to assess the margin of safety, whether we just waiting for the disaster to happen and the movement can be triggered anytime, or we still have a little bit of safety margin within our road design. And that means that if we are to design something for option 3 or option 4, preferably, then we probably need to carry out a little bit more investigations to understand the level of stability of these roads as part of the design process, because you probably don't want to have something which is just marginally stable. That's normally the logic of designing. But again, it's not uncommon for councils and even Waka Kotahi to accept roads or approaches to the bridges which are marginally stable. If you look, for example, at the Tira Viaduct project on South Island, we do have a viaduct which is very stable. However, the approaches to the bridge are only marginally stable. So it's not uncommon. It all depends on the terrain, on the level of risks acceptable to local authorities, and how we're going to deal with that risk and mitigate.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Walcott.
Right, next, Chair. Stefan, I sort of agree with your view that the water tables, the major big slip that's out there, the water tables, really the chance of them having much to do that. They may have had an inkling to help with something, but most of that's happened from well above the road. But the other slumps and slips further up the road and down the road are in my view, are definitely water tables and drainage and such has had a big impact on those. You said that road's been fixed twice, like in that section in recent sort of times. I'm wondering if that the whole view on that has sort of changed a bit now that the whole hill's come and filled the gully underneath it, whether it would actually be better now than it was before when it had more of a drop under the road. In my view, that 3A, probably 3 would be the way to look at it. I think last time we met with the engineers, they said the bottom of the hill had stopped moving. Is that still correct?
The bottom section of the landslide zone hasn't really moved at all for nearly a year.
Yeah.
The upper section of the landslide zone has moved and continues to move marginally after significantly wet weather. So I think where we're currently at is the decision is whether to pursue the more expensive option, irrespective of the fact that the funder has got a negative view of it, or to ask us to progress the options through the slip, but doing that in the knowledge that you are asking engineers to try and plan a route through marginally stable ground, and doing that in the open with the knowledge that it could well fail and the money spent on that route would be lost. But if it's what we can afford and we do everything we can to engineer it in a way that it won't fail, and perhaps you're right, councillor, the fact that the majority of the slip has progressed down the valley and we're dealing with a more stable piece of land, perhaps that will transpire and we'll find more solid ground underneath and it ends up being the best option. But all we're doing here is making sure that the decisions that are made with full information and particularly full information about risk so that everybody knows what they're entering into.
Yeah.
Thanks. Councillor Boswell.
That's not a question, it's more of a comment really. I think the option 4 feels like ordering the champagne, we can only afford the beer. And we probably can't even afford the glass right now to put the beer into. I think we need to, one is the top of the market, and the other one is actually what we can afford to do. So more of a comment than a question.
Thanks. Mayor Connolly.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just a couple of observations. I don't feel inclined to accept Waka Kotahi's economic assessment for the reason that Councillor Maynard mentioned, that she believes nobody's actually gone near the locals to actually get that fine-tuned assessment of what the economic costs of the current position are. I mean, what Waka Kotahi appear to do, as I've read their paper, is to count the number of vehicle movements over a road and extrapolate that into what the economic value of the road is. But unless they've got a somewhat more local understanding of what the value of the vehicles are as they travel on that road, I don't think it counts all that much just to say there were 300 traffic movements. I mean, 300 traffic movements of vehicles carrying gold bars is vastly different to 300 traffic movements of holiday makers, possibly. So I do think that there would be a possibility, in fact, to challenge the economic value of the road and potentially go back and say, well, I think you need to subsidise one option that you are prepared to do. But that would cost money. And as Councillor Bosley said, we're not overflowing with it just at the moment. We then come to the question of what are the risks? And I'm going to make the same comment here that I've made in respect of some of the water projects we've been asked to pay for. I don't believe we get good information on the risks. See, the risk consists of two things. It consists of the probability of something happening and the subsequent cost of what happens. And Councillor Plymmer's view that under some circumstances, you're much better to do a high risk event, which is cheap to repair year on year on year, is actually the much more economical thing to do compared to dealing with something that might happen infrequently, but cost you a fortune when it does. So just to say this is higher risk and this is lower risk, without actually having some sense, is it twice as high? Is it 3 times as high? Means that actually we can't make the simple analytic decision about which represents the best value for money. Now, on the other hand, irrespective of that, there are some people who have a much better idea of the risks than some of us around here. And that's the people who live on the road itself, because they are the ultimate risk takers here. If they say to me, we're quite happy to do the punch through the split, knowing that in 3 years' time we might have to punch through it again, that weighs a great deal with me. And one of the things I would be very keen to have happen is that if we have provided people who live on that road with all the information they think they need, and if we have asked them what is their preferred option, then I would place a great deal of weight on that. And part of the information they need is that the $14 million for the low cost, so if Waka Kotahi only subsidise it 20%, is actually $11 million of our money, roughly. And actually, I doubt very much if that's the real cost anyway. We're probably looking at a much higher amount, just based on what we've seen happens if a project takes 3 or 4 years' time. So I'd be keen to know 2 things. Do the locals have all the information they think they need to assess the risks for themselves? And bearing in mind that these are the risk takers, what do they think is the best option? Now, I know we've had meetings at Hinakura, but we've had views expressed, but are we sure we've had the full range of views expressed based on these folk knowing all the information there is to know? That's just an observation. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor Conley. I think up until this meeting, the Hinakura residents, council has shared with them all the reports, all the documentation. The only thing that hadn't been shared was did we share with the Waka Kotahi letter?
No, that
didn't share.
just came in recently and we didn't share that, and I'm sorry if we should have done that. But that's the only thing that we haven't made public.
And as a result of the workshop that we had out of the Hinakura Hall, there was a survey that was sent out to residents, and we got feedback from the residents, and by far, I think the right through the centre, the yellow option, which is the high risk option, option 3, that had 37.5% acceptance. The option 4, which was the orange option, which went up across the top of the slip, had 18.75% acceptance. So I think bar that last lot of information from Waka Kotahi, we've heard pretty much everything.
A lot of non-acceptance in there, isn't there? I mean, we haven't got a majority view. 37% isn't a majority.
Yes, well, it was.
I understand.
Yeah.
And Chair, just to sort of talk a little bit more about risk. Obviously, this is a difficult situation that you're in, because we can't quantify the risk to a level that's determinative. You know, this isn't, you're making a decision in a very uncertain environment, and I know that that's really difficult, but we can tell you what we know about the risk of punching a road through a former landslip site. We can tell you what we know, and we have done that in the engineering report. Then if you say to us, okay, we're inclined to prefer that option, and we would like you to go ahead and show us what that looks like with engineered plans, then we can drill down, literally drill down into the risk for you with all the tools at the disposal of a modern engineering consultancy. And then we can start to be more precise about what kind of risk you face. But ultimately, Chair, we could have another very significant weather event and none of that will count and the road will fail again. So it's, I know everybody wants a higher understanding of risk, and so do we, but it isn't possible to a point of determination. But we'll make it as good as we can.
Thanks, Stefan. Councillor Salafora.
Sorry, just to confirm though, Stefan, if it's option 3, if it's another option, that initial investigative work that will be done to form the design is going to inform our knowledge far greater than we currently have now.
Yes.
So whatever option we choose, that investigative design work will inform the path forward.
Yeah, another piece of the jigsaw.
We would do a risk. Faris, I think I'm correct in saying we would do a risk assessment, which would have a lot more detail about the potential for movement in the site and the mitigations that are available to us. If that looked positive, we'd move to engineered plans, which would have your consents and your legal permissions attached to them. And then at that point, if everybody's happy, you're able to tender, and then you're able to build. If we got through the risk assessment process, Faris, and we found that there was very little stable ground, that our mitigations were seen to be probably inadequate, then I'm assuming we will come back to you with that information. Faris, is that correct?
Yeah, yes, that's correct. I think the key thing for us is obviously to re-implement a more monitoring regime for between now until we get started, really, and that will be precious data as well to help inform the risk assessment.
I do want to make just one final comment about public safety. I know that residents are eager and to get a solution, and I empathise greatly with the impact that this is having on people's lives in a variety of ways, as we all do. But we do need to make sure that we build a road that meets national standards and that is as safe as it possibly can be. And what we don't want is the road to fail overnight and someone to not know that and come out and go into a slip and hurt themselves or kill themselves. So we have to temper our enthusiasm to get something done as fast as possible with making sure we still meet national standards of safety.
Thanks. Councillor Maynard, you've got your hand raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that with what Stefan said. And perhaps Faris or Alexia can just confirm this. The options 3 and 3A that you've given us, surely you wouldn't have put them on the table with, although I understand we haven't done the full risk assessment anyway, that, there's still work to be done on whatever is chosen. But I'd like to think that these options weren't on the table if we're talking about, although to be fair, there's a lot of rural roads that kind of sit in that slightly more marginal zone. So it comes down to, I'm just looking at the survey that the community have put out, that all responded to, I should say, that the council have put out on top of the report. And so I'd just like to perhaps be able to temper to a degree the concerns that Stefan is holding. I completely understand them, but I'd also, I'd like to think that these options weren't on the table if they're not viable.
I think the one of the key drivers for this option 3, we definitely rule out 3A. That's the one that goes down the the massive steep and all this stuff. Yeah. In terms of option 3, that's the one that actually follows the existing Hinakura road alignment. It is on the table on the basis that there's a potential to do that, but associated higher risk in terms of doing that. Is trying to quantify what we're dealing with in terms of the design, the work that's required in comparison to the other options. Just putting out there, but there will be definitely higher risk associated with that being at that point.
With what Councillor Woodcock brought up earlier, with the fact that the additional, I guess, amount of land that's now sitting on top of there, that may actually will help or could in fact have condensed it a little bit more to a safer level perhaps. But I guess with any option that we choose, we still have to do some of that testing, don't we?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Maynard. I just want to, I know we've gone around the table. We've still got a couple of councillors with their hands up, but there's also Councillor Gray, who we haven't heard from. And if Councillor Gray is online, I'd like to give you the opportunity to have some input. And also we've got Councillor Olds sitting off to the side here as well. And I'll be keen to hear some comment from him if possible. Councillor Gray, are you present?
I sure am. Thank you very much. It's been listening and paying attention, and it's obvious that we are stuck between a rock and a hard place. I think for me, I take a longer view of the situation, and I know this is probably not the time or place to be making these points, but if we're looking down the barrel of more and more extreme weather events, and we have a network of shifting land as a response to that, do we set a precedence with this road with an expectation of what future roads can or would be repaired to? Yeah, again, it's difficult. I also would like to back up what the Mayor said earlier, which was when we went out to Hanakura and we spoke with the residents, they were quite clear in the option that they wanted, and I put a lot of weight behind that. So, even though that's a higher risk option, it may be, as you say, Boz, it may be the beer that we can afford rather than the champagne that we would prefer. Thank you.
Thanks so much for your for that, Councillor Gray. That's great to get your input. Councillor Olds, would you like to come to the table?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah.
And take a seat and provide some input for us.
Just a couple of highlights, I guess, for me during listening to the conversation is that whatever option we choose, and no matter which way it's funded, either 70% or 20% by Waka Kotahi, the balance of that funding falls on our ratepayers district-wide. We can't lose sight of the fact that we've got a huge amount of priorities across our region that need as much attention, if not more in some cases. So that's not devoiding the fact that there is a problem out at Hanakura that we need to deal with. There's a risk-averse approach, which is option 4, obviously, which to a large extent is probably the safest, which will meet Waka Kotahi's road safety standards for the development and engineering of a road. Or there's the more risky option of going through the existing structure and the stuff that is and I guess it's our appetite for risk as well. If we spend $1 million, $1.5 million doing that, and 3 months down the track we have another major event, and that's all washed down the gully, I take on board what Alistair says, we pump in another $1.5–2 million, and it's just putting a Band-Aid on the problem. And it continues to cost our ratepayers money. So that's the dilemma we're in, how much risk do we actually want to accept and take for the benefit of ratepayers across the region. So.
Thanks, Councillor Olds. Now quickly, can we do this quickly, Councillor Woodcock and Councillor Plummer, because we're hitting a time deadline, we're going to be going over time and we've still got some other issues to
cool.
today.
Thanks, Aidan. Stefan, you said about take the higher risk and build the road through the guts and get another weather event and wash away sort of 12 months later. sort of see that view, and we don't want to build a road that's really dangerous, but you also could look at that point and think, well, any weather event could wash so many kilometres of our roads away anywhere. It's sort of where do you draw a line? But that's more of a statement. The fact with that letter that the Hinakura and I didn't get sent, that got to the paper first, I'd just like to make another statement. Can we please make sure that doesn't happen again? Because I actually didn't see my email, and I actually first seen it on the internet and wondered what the hell was going on. So yeah, I think it should definitely, those sort of things should go to the people that it affects before the paper gets any information out of us. Cool. Cheers.
Thanks. Councillor Plummer.
Yeah, I think we're in the cycle of paralysis by analysis at the moment. And Stefan's not saying whatever direction we give Stefan, we're not building a road yet. We're actually going to the next stage to say, is this buildable? And that's what you need, is some guidance of where to start, isn't it?
Eliminating options really. That's like.
Can I propose that we go, let's progress the next stage for the yellow option. We'll know soon enough whether that's not viable. And if it comes back to us, if the guys come back to us and say it's not viable, for all the reasons, we can then say, well, let's look at orange. But we can't keep going round and circles. Yellow's option 3 through the middle. So
if the decision could be for you to instruct us to examine that option and progress to more sophisticated engineering plans and cost for approval, then that would be great.
Yeah.
So do we need someone to actually voice that as a?
Well, that's the recommendation.
So just to confirm, option 3, so that's the option that is the closest to following the old existing roads as possible. Yep.
So that route is 250 metres long. That the acceptance by residents was 37.5%, and that's the high risk option. The orange route, which goes up around the top, which came out from the meeting out there at Hinakura, that's 700 metres long, and that's, I think, the option which is less risk. Stefan, I suppose the gold plated option is the pink route, which goes right up over the top.
Yeah.
Which is the 2 kilometre long option, which has been priced up at 10 to 14 million.
Both of the first options you mentioned are through a slip zone, and carry that elevated risk because it's a known zone. So the lowest cost option is 3, which is restoring the original alignment or near to the original alignment. It'd have to be cut in a lot closer, and it'd look a little bit different, but
yes, as close as possible.
It's also the quickest road in terms of length of time. 2024 is supposed to 2026.
So I'll propose that we.
Can we just wait? Councillor Maynard, you've got your hand up.
No.
Sorry about that. Yeah, has it come off? Oh yeah, cool. I just wanted to just check, because from the survey, someone had also put their a preferred option is to start at the pink, join into the orange, and finish up at the exit where the blue line finishes. So, comments like that coming from the community, just perhaps even if something like that, which ties together some and may help with the curvature, may help with some of the bigger trucks and things like that. Perhaps even though it sounds a bit crazy, even if it could be looked at, only because of the way I read it, doesn't sound crazy when you look at the maps. But things like that, just to be perhaps looked at too as another option. I don't know. Sorry to throw something else in the works, but I figure once we get through this first point, why not?
Thanks for that, Councillor Maynard. So, Councillor Plummer, would you like to move a resolution for
what were the words used? You want to go? I'm proposing that we start the investigation of the yellow route, option 3.
Yeah, and instruct management to investigate option 3, or advance option 3 to risk assessment and preliminary engineered design and plans with a more sophisticated view of, more sophisticated estimate of costs. And then that will give you, I think that will give you enough information to make a later decision.
So will that include like drilling for stabilisation?
That will include that more sophisticated examination of land stability by the engineers.
I see. Just get the wording, just get the wording right.
But is this a recommendation?
It's a recommendation to council.
Okay, that's fine.
And moved by councillor Plymouth, seconded by Mayor Connolly. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Yeah, aye.
Aye.
Thank you, councillors Maynard and Gray from afar. All against, please say no. Unanimous. Thanks so much, team. And thanks so much to the Hinakura community coming in, sitting in and being part of this this process. Thank you.
Okay, thanks
now-
everyone. We'll take our leave anyway. Stefan,
Thank
if
you
you
very
say
much
so.
for participation.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
I'd just like to propose that we amend or adjourn for 10 minutes to stretch our legs. And then we'll carry on.
But is everyone available after? So that's what we were supposed to finish at 12.
I'm gonna have to, I have to leave, unfortunately. And,
We did have a workshop but that's now been cancelled, sorry, but a hearing, sorry,
Next meeting is at 2:30.
2:30 at the next one.
Yeah, I can be here.
So we've got our next,
Just to do like a 5-minute break and get
okay,
back.
I'll suggest a 5-minute break, team, and then we'll adjourn and then we'll get back into it. So we finish next week. Thank you.
Fun. The YouTube, please. At the